What's going on, grade 5, part 4 of Jeopardy? I hope it's going well so far. What I thought I'd do in this one is add a block that I should have added before, which the way we're coding this, when our costume switches to the question and then to the answer, we want this whole costume to cover the whole screen, which will cover all the other blocks. So we have to make sure that the question goes on top of everything. So right here, don't disconnect this. I'm just showing you what this part of the code does. Is this part of the code, if you remember, brings it to the middle and then switches it. So at that point, after we switch to costume 2, let's go to looks and let's just make sure that it goes to the front layer. That way it'll just go on top of everything. Okay, we want to make sure that those questions cover everything. That's why it's important that they're fully filled with the bucket. Okay, so just make that little adjustment there. And then I thought what we'd do as well to make our code a little bit more, make a little bit more sense, is let's go to the costumes tab and let's just rename these costumes. That way we know what costume 1 is, we know what costume 2 is, and we know what costume 3 is. So why don't we rename costume 1 to icon, I-C-O-N, because that's just the icon that we use to click. Let's go to costume 2. If you need to pause at any time, just pause and continue it. Go to costume 2. Why don't we name that costume question? And we'll go to costume 3 and we'll name that costume answer. And like I said, why don't you pause it for a second and change those costume names to icon, question, and answer. Okay, then when you are finished with that, unpause and then have a look at code. You'll see now that our code makes sense. When we hit the green flag, we switch the costume to the icon. That's the first thing that happens. When we click on it, it glides to the middle. It switches to the question and it goes on top of everything. We wait for that space bar to be pressed and then released. We switch the costume to the answer. We wait for that space bar to be pressed and released again. We switch to the icon costume. We put it back home and we hide it. That way we don't select that costume again. Okay, so we're in a pretty good spot right now, but we're going to run into an issue in a second. Because right now, when I run this code, okay, he goes home. So no matter where I put him, okay, he's going to go home, tap him. Good. Space, space. All right, that's great. So I'm going to duplicate this. Don't do this yet. I just want to show you what issue we're going to have here. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. Now, let me just change the home of this guy real quick. Don't worry about this just yet. I'm going to be deleting this guy in a second, okay? So when I hit my flag, notice I have 2 questions, all right? And they both are the same right now, which is fine. Okay, and they both work. However, here's the issue. I can get them both going at the same time. Okay, when one question is selected, I should not be able to choose the other one. Okay, so we'll want to only make this so that one can go at a time. So we're going to use a variable. It's called a state variable. And here's an example of a state variable. A state variable is just the current state of it. What it's currently doing. So in this example right now, the state of this light is off. And when I press the space bar and the switch goes up, the current state of the light is now on. So if I press space bar again, the state of the light is off. Space bar again, the state of the light is on. So in this project, we want to have a state so that we know if a question has been selected or not. So we'll go to variables. We'll make a new variable and just call it question chosen. Okay, make that variable called question chosen. It is for all sprites, so make sure that that is for all sprites because the whole program needs to see this. If we clicked on this sprite only that sprite that we made this on would see it. I want the whole project to be able to see the variable called question chosen. And that's going to be either yes or no. Yes, one has been chosen, or no, one hasn't been. So create that, hit OK, and I'll see you for part 5.